Hey everyone! In this video we're going to look at the conclusion of the compare and contrast essay. So we're looking at this example compare and contrast essay again about the difference between culture in Boston and South Florida. And we're going to go ahead and look at the fifth paragraph, the last paragraph of that, which is the conclusion this time. So here's the conclusion. In many ways, then, the cultures of Boston and South Florida seem affected by their climates. Of course, the seasonal temperatures affect what people wear and what they do outside for fun, but the most surprising contrast was the difference I saw in people's attitudes toward life. When I arrived on Commonwealth Avenue as a college freshman, I was moving at a slow, Floridian pace, and almost got run over by an old lady who had somewhere to go. Sometimes I missed the relaxed speed of Florida and the friendliness of strangers there, but I also admire the ambition and efficiency of Bostonians. When I visit Florida, the people I knew often seem to have barely moved. I sometimes imagine Floridians as stuck in place. Perhaps the heat melted their shoes to the sidewalk. At this point, after over a decade living in Massachusetts, I'm more a Bostonian in my own attitude. However, one thing hasn't changed. I would always rather go to the beach and swim in warm water than skate around a frozen pond on a couple of knife shoes like a maniac. Of course, that's just a little joke there at the end about ice skating. You know, the ice skates, they sort of look like shoes that you've attached knives to. So I was trying to end this essay with a little joke. But anyway, let's look at how this conclusion is working in relation to the rest of the essay. This first sentence, in many ways then, the cultures of Boston and South Florida seem affected by their climates. Does that sound familiar? It's basically restating the main idea of the entire essay. Let's go back up and look at the introduction, specifically at the thesis statement. Let's look at the last two sentences, actually. The two places not only have different climates and different landscapes, but also, as I discovered, different cultures. In Florida, the heat seems to affect every aspect of the culture, from fashion to recreation to personalities, making Floridians more relaxed than the focused Bostonians I found in the crisp autumn air. So, the cultures of Boston and South Florida seem affected by their climates. That's sort of stating the main idea of the essay in different words. Boston and South Florida have different cultures, and it almost seems like those cultures are affected by their climates. How about this next sentence? Of course, the seasonal temperatures affect what people wear and what they do outside for fun, but the most surprising contrast was the difference I saw in people's attitudes toward life. Now that should sound familiar too. What it is talking about is the topics of the three body paragraphs, right? What people wear. That was the topic of the first body paragraph. The first and most obvious difference between South Florida and Boston involved clothing. What people wear and what they do outside for fun. That was the topic of the second body paragraph. Many people in both South Florida and Boston enjoy outdoors recreation, but the contrasting climates make different activities popular. They do different things outside because of the different climates and landscapes. They affect what people wear and what they do outside for fun, but the most surprising contrast was the difference I saw in people's attitudes toward life. And that was the topic of the third body paragraph. The final cultural difference is that the differing climates even seem to influence the personalities or outlooks of the people who live in each place. Personalities, outlooks, attitude toward life. Okay? So, we can see that the conclusion begins by restating the main idea of the whole essay and the main points from the body. But it does it in different words because you don't want to bore your reader by just saying the same thing over again, right? You've already made these points, but now you're going to restate them in a short form and in new words. The cultures of Boston and South Florida seem affected by their climates. The seasonal temperatures, of course, affect what people wear and what they do outside for fun, but the most surprising difference was the one in people's attitudes toward life. So it's restated all the main points from the thesis statement and the topic sentences of the body paragraphs. And it's done it in a very quick way, just 2 sentences. That's one of the things that your conclusion in this essay has to do. It has to restate the main points of your essay in new words. Now, if we look at the assignment sheet, don't forget about the assignment sheet for this assignment, for the compare and contrast essay, we can see that that's written down for the conclusion. What does the conclusion do? It starts with a summary. Summarize the main points of your argument in new words, including your thesis statement. Now, what's the second thing it does? It needs to make the essay feel finished. Now, there are different ways that you can make the essay feel finished. Here are some ideas. You could suggest what the changes in your own life from before the pandemic to during the pandemic. You can suggest what those changes mean to you, how they make you feel. You could talk about what you think about the future, or you could just add some other new information that is somehow related to your argument, related to your thesis statement about how your life has changed or is similar from before the pandemic to during. So let's see how I made the sample essay feel finished in the conclusion. After I summarized the main points, then I said, when I arrived on Commonwealth Avenue as a college freshman, I was moving at a slow Floridian pace, almost got run over by an old lady who had somewhere to go. Now that sentence is referring back to my hook about a little gray-haired lady who zoomed past me as I was walking down the sidewalk. Okay? And that's one way that you can help to make your essay feel finished, is you can connect the end of the essay to the beginning of the essay by referring back to your hook. You don't have to do that though. That's just one possibility. So then the conclusion says, sometimes I miss the relaxed speed of Florida and the friendliness of strangers there, but I also admire Bostonians' ambition and efficiency. So this is helping to make the essay feel finished by talking about my feelings about these differences. Earlier in the essay, in the body paragraphs, I was basically just saying, here are the differences. Here's what people are like in Florida. Here's what they're like in Massachusetts, right? I was just giving lots of details and examples about the differences, but I wasn't really saying how I felt about them. So in the conclusion, I'm adding something new. I'm talking about how I miss some things about the place I'm from, but then I admire things about the place where I live now as well. And here's a little extra information. When I visit Florida, the people I knew often seem to have barely moved. I sometimes imagine that they're stuck in place. They're not literally stuck in place, but I make a little joke there about the heat melting their shoes to the sidewalk. But it seems like they're stuck because they aren't moving in life as quickly as in Massachusetts. And then I say how I feel now. You know, I started the essay by talking about when I first arrived in Boston, my first week in Boston. And now I say, you know, I've been here over a decade in Massachusetts. I'm more a Bostonian myself now, even though I started as a Floridian. And then I decided to end it with a silly little joke about how I would always rather swim in warm water than go ice skating, because ice skating seems like a difficult and cold hobby. So that's just one example of how a conclusion can restate the main points from the thesis statement and the body of the essay. And you're doing that quickly, and you're doing it in different words. And then you make the essay feel finished by adding some new information, okay? Something related to the topic, but something new. And as I said before, some examples include Suggest what the differences mean to you or how they make you feel. You could talk about what you think about the future. You know, your life has changed a lot in the last month or two. You could think about how it might change in the future, or you could just add something else that's somehow related, but it's new, and that will help the essay to feel finished. So I hope all of that made sense, and it helps you think about writing your conclusions to your compare and contrast essays.